The cell was too clean for an execution chamber. That was the first thing Elias Bourne noticed as he stood at the center of it, wrists bound behind his back with restraint bands humming faintly against his skin. No bloodstains. No scorch marks. No hooks or blades waiting in polite silence. Just smooth obsidian walls that reflected his own image back at him, tired eyes, hollow cheeks, and the unmistakable posture of a man who had already accepted his fate. He had expected death the moment the patrol ships dragged his crippled freighter out of fold space. He had expected it again when the Caraxi boarding unit cut through his hull with thermal lances, their chitinous armor glinting like living weapons. And he had expected it a third time when they discovered what he was carrying. Human smugglers didn't last long in Caraxi-controlled sectors. Human smugglers carrying forbidden tech lasted even less. Yet here he was, alive, waiting. A low vibration rolled through the chamber floor, followed by the soft hiss of pressure seals disengaging. The far wall split apart like an opening wound, revealing a corridor bathed in amber light. They were coming. Elias straightened his shoulders, ignoring the tremor running through his arms. If this was the end, he would meet it standing. The guards entered first, 3 Caraxi enforcers, tall and angular, their exoskeletal plating etched with clan sigils that marked them as veterans. Their compound eyes flickered with internal data streams as they assessed him, calculating threat probabilities that were now laughably low. Behind them came someone else. Larger. Older. The chief. Chief Trawl of the Caraxi Dominion moved with deliberate slowness, each step heavy enough to resonate through the chamber. His carapace was darker than the guards, scarred and worn, with ceremonial gold inlays tracing the lines of his thorax. His mandibles bore chips and fractures, signs of battles survived long before Elias had been born. This was not an executioner. This was a judge. The guard stopped at the threshold. Trawl continued alone, his presence filling the room more completely than the walls ever could. Elias swallowed. So, Trawl said, his voice a layered resonance that seemed to come from multiple throats at once, translated smoothly by the implant humming behind Elias's ear. You are the human who crossed 3 restricted zones, bypassed 2 Dominion blockades, and attempted to sell a relic that predates our recorded history. Elias met the chief's gaze. That about covers it. One of Trawl's eyes narrowed slightly, an expression Elias had learned was roughly equivalent to curiosity. You do not deny it. No point, Elias replied. You've already won. Trawl circled him slowly, examining him the way a craftsman might inspect a flawed but interesting tool. You expected death. Elias gave a humorless smile. Still do. The chief stopped in front of him. Death is simple, Trawl said. Efficient. Final. But it teaches us nothing. Silence stretched between them, thick and unsettling. Then Trawl did something Elias could not have predicted. He dismissed the guards. The chamber doors sealed again, leaving the 2 of them alone. Elias's heart pounded. If this is where you explain how painful it's going to be. It is not, Trawl interrupted. I have reviewed your history, Elias Bourne, former systems engineer for the Terran Coalition. Dishonorably discharged after refusing a direct order during the Heliox uprising. Elias's jaw tightened. I refuse to fire on civilians. Yes, Trawl said calmly. And then you vanished into the fringe, surviving as a scavenger, courier, and smuggler. You were skilled, resourceful, morally inconvenient. Elias laughed bitterly. That's one way to put it. Trawl's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of contemplation. You carry guilt, the chief continued. It drives you into dangerous places. You believe yourself already condemned. Elias didn't answer. The chief stepped closer. I will not execute you, Trawl said. Elias blinked. What? I will give you a choice. The words hit harder than any threat. A choice. Elias echoed. Yes, Troll said. Serve the Dominion, or die here and now. The floor beneath Elias felt suddenly unsteady. Serve how? Troll turned, gesturing toward the sealed wall. A holographic projection flared to life, filling the chamber with shifting stars and fractured schematics. Our civilization is failing, the chief said, his voice lower now, stripped of ceremony. Not through war, but through stagnation. We are strong, disciplined, united, yet unable to adapt. Images shifted, collapsing habitats, power grids flickering out, entire Caraxi cities dimming into darkness. We have encountered relics like the one you smuggled before, Troll continued. Human-made systems that evolve, improvise, and defy prediction. Chaos by our standards. Elias frowned. You're saying you want me to help you understand it? No, Troll corrected. I want you to build it. Elias stared. You're insane. Possibly, Troll admitted. But we have exhausted every obedient mind within our ranks. They follow rules too well. You, Elias Vorn, break them instinctively. The chief's eyes locked onto his. You will be embedded within our core infrastructure project. You will teach us how humans adapt under pressure, how you survive when systems fail. And if I refuse? Troll didn't hesitate. Then you will die knowing you changed nothing. The chamber felt unbearably small. Elias thought of Heliox, of the screams over comms, of the order he'd refused, and the lives he hadn't saved anyway. What's the catch? He asked quietly. You will not be free, Troll said. You will be monitored, controlled. And if you betray us, your death will be instructive. Elias closed his eyes. Death or purpose, execution or a chance, however twisted, to matter again. He opened his eyes. I'll do it. The restraints fell away with a soft snap. Troll inclined his massive head. Then your death is postponed, the chief said. Let us see what a human does with time he never expected to have. The facility beneath the Caraxi capital was unlike anything Elias had seen. It wasn't a prison. It wasn't a lab. It was a nerve center, a vast living construct of biomechanical systems grown rather than built, pulsing with data and energy. Elias was given a workstation overlooking the core, flanked by Caraxi engineers who watched him with thinly veiled suspicion. They expected failure. They expected him to break. Instead, Elias dismantled their assumptions piece by piece. He rewrote control algorithms not to prevent errors, but to adapt to them. He introduced redundancy that learned from mistakes. He taught systems to improvise, to bend instead of shatter. The Caraxi hated it. At first, your methods are inefficient. One engineer snapped as Elias deliberately overloaded a power conduit during a simulation. And yet, Elias replied, watching the system reroute itself in real time, it survived. Weeks passed, then months. Failures became lessons. Lessons became resilience. The core began to change, not just functionally, but philosophically. Even Troll watched from the shadows, his interest deepening into something Elias hadn't expected. Respect. One cycle, after a particularly brutal test run, Troll approached him as Elias sat alone, staring at the glowing core. You were meant to fail, the chief said. Elias smirked faintly. Yeah. Story of my life. You have altered our trajectory, Troll continued. The Council resists this change. They fear what they cannot predict. Elias looked up. Let me guess. That makes me a problem again. Yes, Troll said, but also indispensable. The chief was silent for a long moment. When I offered you death, Troll said slowly, I believed it mercy. Now I see it would have been waste. Elias leaned back, exhausted but alive in a way he hadn't been in years. You gave me a choice. That's more than most ever did. Troll studied him. The Dominion will endure, the chief said, because of chaos we once despised. And me? Elias asked. What happens when the project's done? Troll's mandibles curled in what might have been a smile. You will remain, he said, not as a prisoner. Elias raised an eyebrow. But as proof, Troll finished, that survival sometimes requires listening to those who refuse to obey. For the first time since Heliox, Elias felt something loosen in his chest. He had expected death. Instead, he had been given a future. And in changing the fate of an alien empire, he had finally begun to change his own. The council moved faster than Elias expected. He noticed the change first in the silence. The core usually hummed with layered harmonics, thousands of adaptive processes whispering to one another as they learned, failed, corrected, and evolved. That morning, the sound was flatter, restrained, artificially orderly. Someone had throttled it. Elias straightened from his console. That's not right. Across the chamber, the Caraxi engineers froze. Their compound eyes flickered with alarmed data streams. They've imposed directive purity, one of them said quietly. The council has overridden the adaptive layer. Elias's blood ran cold. You mean they turned the learning off? Yes. Then the whole system's brittle, Elias snapped. You lock it into perfection, it can't survive shock. As if the universe were waiting for the cue, the alarms began. A deep, resonant pulse shook the facility as external sensors screamed warnings, subspace turbulence cascading through the capital's orbital ring. A stellar shear wave, rare and violent, was tearing through the sector far ahead of predictive models. The kind of event Elias had built the system to handle. The kind the council had just crippled. Power fluctuations rippled through the city above. Lights dimmed. Gravity wavered. Elias was already moving. I need full access. Now. You do not have authorization, an engineer replied, voice tight. Then you're about to watch your civilization go dark. Elias shot back. Your choice. The chamber doors thundered open. Chief Troll entered at a run, something Elias had never seen before. The council has sealed the command spires, Troll said. They believe order will preserve us. Elias pulled up the incoming projections. The numbers were ugly. Order will kill you. Troll didn't argue. He stepped forward, his massive form blocking the council's emblem etched into the far wall. Do what you must, the chief said. Elias hesitated. If I do this, there's no going back. Your system will change permanently. Then let it, Troll replied. We have already delayed adaptation too long. Elias exhaled and slammed his palm onto the console. He tore the restraints out of the code. The core screamed, not in pain, but in sudden freedom. Adaptive processes surged, rewriting pathways faster than any Caraxi design philosophy ever allowed. Failures bloomed and were cannibalized into solutions. Power rerouted. Structures flexed instead of resisting. The shear wave hit. The city shook. Towers bent. Orbital platforms spun wildly. And then, against every rigid prediction, the system held. Not perfectly, but alive. Minutes later, the tremors faded. Emergency lighting stabilized. Gravity normalized. The capital still stood. Silence fell over the chamber. Then the council's voice cut through the comms, sharp with disbelief. You violated a direct override, human. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. Yeah. Saved your lives too. This chaos you introduce is the reason you're breathing, Elias interrupted. Your world isn't dying because it lacks control. It's dying because you're afraid to change. A pause. Long, heavy. Trawl stepped forward into the calm's pickup field. The human is correct, the chief said. I authorized his actions. You had no right. I had responsibility, Trawl replied. And today, responsibility demanded disobedience. The channel went dead. Hours later, Elias stood alone at the observation window as dawnlight crept across the Caraxi capital. Structures still bore scars. Systems would need repair, but they would endure. Trawl joined him quietly. The council has conceded, the chief said. They will not admit error, but they will not interfere again. Elias chuckled tiredly. Figures. You were prepared to die today, Trawl observed. Elias nodded. Wouldn't have been the worst ending. But you chose to fight instead. Elias looked out over the city. Guess I'm bad at giving up. Trawl studied him for a long moment. You are no longer bound to this facility, the chief said. You may leave the Dominion if you wish. Elias turned, surprised. Just like that. Yes, Trawl said. Your debt is paid. Freedom. The word felt strange. Heavy. Elias considered it carefully. Then he shook his head. I think I'll stay, he said. Trawl's eyes widened slightly. Someone's got to keep teaching you people how to break things properly, Elias added with a faint grin. A sound emerged from Trawl's thorax, low, resonant. Laughter. Then you will serve as something new, the chief said. Not a prisoner. Not a tool. What then? Elias asked. Trawl placed a massive claw against his own chest in a gesture of respect. A reminder, the chief said, that survival is not born from obedience, but from those willing to defy extinction itself. As the city brightened beneath them, Elias felt the last weight of Heliox finally loosen its grip. He had expected death. Instead, he had become something far rarer in the galaxy. A choice that changed everything.